Sometimes life lets you down and you feel that you are done. You just wanna mourn and run because the fun is all gone. But sometimes life makes you proud when you look far and wide, when you leave the pain behind and see the brighter side. TNC gives you inspiration. TNC reignites your passion. TNC starts your transformation. TNC helps you see the new you. Sometimes life makes you blind and you choose something bad. You just wanna cry and hide and save your face from the crowd. But sometimes life makes you see the beauty in you and me. When you look up above, there is God and there is love. TNC gives you inspiration. TNC reignites your passion. TNC starts your transformation. TNC helps you see the new. We're here to help you see the newness of life. We're here to help you feel your hope is so real. You got the power to see. We'll help you see the new you. TNC gives you inspiration. TNC reignites your passion. TNC starts your transformation. TNC helps you see the new you.
The new channel. The new channel. The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following show are those of the hosts, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to TNC. We are here to help you see the new you. My name is Jennifer Nuya, live streaming from Cavite, Philippines, and you are watching Stories from the Fringe on TNC Express. We're so glad that you can join us today. I'll be introducing our guest in just a moment. Let me know that you can hear me by typing in the comments section where in the world you are joining us from today. Awesome. You can also use the chat box to ask questions, drop in comments, or just share whatever you would like to share with us. We will also drop links that you can click on or copy for later use. In order to make the most of our time together, We encourage you to turn off all distractions, prepare to take notes, mental or written, so that you can be fully engaged and focused on Candice Duggar. Our guest for today, Candice Duggar, is a nationally recognized expert on anti-bullying, speaker, trainer, and author. She founded Bullied, Broken, Redeemed. She and her team equip leaders, parents, and youth on all aspects of Gen Z bullying. And she has also been seen on NBC, CBN, FRC, and on top of that, she trains top 100 Fortune companies. Let me hand it over to you, Candice.
Jennifer, thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for dropping on the show. Candice, we would like to know your personal story, your big why you started Bullied, Broken, Redeemed.
Oh, thank you. So many years ago, I actually used to be in the corporate world running multi-billion-dollar sales teams. And I had a health illness that kind of made me take a step back. And it was during that time that I realized how much my son was really struggling in school. He was struggling with his mental health. He was struggling academically, and he was really in a place of hurting and broken. And it was during that time, he was 12 years old, that I actually almost lost him to suicide due to horrific bullying. And a combination of being in an environment where he had a lot of learning differences that was focusing on what he couldn't do well every day, along with the bullying that was 24 hours a day, things I really didn't recognize as a parent at the time, the in-person bullying that was rolling over to gaming bullying and cyber bullying had just broken him down from a place of not wanting to live any longer. And we really decided as a family we needed to take a step back for him, and we pulled him out of traditional public education and started what we call telecommuting his education. A lot of people might call that homeschooling, but we look at it as telecommuting our son's education. And we started the road and the journey to helping him heal again, building back his mental health, coming to a place of balance and joy and a will to want to live. And it was a very dark time in our family's lives. And what we realized was there was almost no help for families struggling with bullying because of the explosion that's happened in the past 10 years. We really have not seen a lot of support for the parents end in our country. Here in the United States, it's always go to the school, go to the administration. They will take care of it for you. Yet bullying is happening in our homes. It's happening in gaming. It's happening on their phones. It's happening when they're not in school. It's not just a school issue. It's a cultural issue. And so we started Bullied, Broken, Redeemed now a little over 5 years ago, and now equip leaders, parents, and youth all over the world in helping them understand this epidemic and how to help children and adults heal from the trauma.
Mm-hmm. So sorry to hear about that. And I'm happy because you as a whole family decided that you needed to heal and restore.
Yes, we did. It was a time that I have to tell you was really hard. My husband and I came from the corporate world. We were running big teams and companies. He was running his own business. And people in our world could not possibly understand why we would homeschool. Why would we do that? And on top of that, we could afford to, if you can put a child in a private education, why wouldn't you do that route? But we really felt called to help him build his confidence back in a different way. And I had gone to school for psychology originally, and I was like, there's got to be a better way of finding balance and health and joy and happiness in his life again, and a will to live. Because the bullying, there is a true piece of bullying that affects people on a very deeper level. Now the adults I work with many times can remember back to the bullying of their childhood. They can remember the smells, the sounds. It's very much a PTSD effect on them. And if you don't take the time to heal from it and to also learn new ways to handle bullies, they don't stop in school. They end up in our workplace. They end up in our culture. They end up as adults. And so we need to teach our young people, how do you handle conflict, but then how do you handle bullies, and what do you do when you're confronted with it, that you can take your power back and not sit in this cycle of abuse, which is what bullying is. It's one of the largest forms of abuse we don't talk about.
Yeah. I agree that bullying victims face trauma and abuse.
Mhm.
So these bullies, they target victims verbally sometimes as a start, and then it can escalate to physical bullying, which over time will chip in at the victim's self-esteem until that self-esteem has vanished. As a victim of bullying myself while I was growing up, I was oftentimes bullied because I was a nerd, I was a geek in school. Healing takes time, right?
Yeah.
So, how many years did it take for your child to fully heal, to move from that episode in his life?
It took him a solid 2 years of us really using a lot of healing tools with him every day in many different places, from in nature to learning mindfulness to working in art therapy to working with animals, all types of different approaches. It was a good 2 years, but I will tell you, still to this day, there is he still struggles in some areas. So he's actually in the middle now. He has his own business in helping dealing with the mental health of teens, and he's starting his own foundation that he'll be launching this fall on helping other youth dealing with mental health crisis, because he realizes it's not a one and done. It's not a band-aid. There's still things today that can trigger those episodes for him. And so I don't think people realize we're not talking about a situation where people are calling mean names, right? We're not talking about just a little bit of teasing. When we're talking about bullying, and the way, just for your audience here, if it's okay, Jennifer, I want to take a moment and just talk to everybody a moment about what we are really talking about. When I'm defining bullying, I feel like our society throws that word around a whole lot, right? We talk about he's bullying me, she's bullying me, they're a bully. But when we're talking about true bullying, it has to have three different components to it. First, is it aggressive, right? Is it repeated or a strong probability of threat? And is there a power imbalance? You have to have all of those things put in place to really be dealing with bullying. If it isn't, then we may be dealing with conflict and we can handle things in a different way. But if it's aggressive and it's repeated and there's a power imbalance, somebody is intentionally looking to harm you, to overpower you, to come after you in a way that is meant to cause harm. It is meant to abuse you. They are taking that power over you because they are being fulfilled, right, on a
Mhm.
psychological level by that. And only 20% of bullying is physical. 80% of all bullying is not physical. It is the mental abuse of wearing people down over and over again, like we see online. And with cyberbullying and gaming bullying now having a big uptick, we are, especially, in the last year and a half, as people have gone online more and more and more, even as adults, we are seeing an explosion in that cyberbullying world. And unfortunately, the term bullycide was coined probably about a decade ago now, which is when someone ends up ultimately taking their life to suicide due to bullying. So bullycide has been on the rise as well, and a very big concern for people who are working in this field.
All right. You mentioned, Candice, about bully side. Is this one of the emerging patterns or forms of bullying because of this COVID-19 crisis and the subsequent lockdowns?
So it's a little bit difficult for me to say if it was because of that, because we've seen a direct rise since 2011, since the introduction um, of the internet. We have seen a direct rise in people not really having a break, not being able to have a moment to step aside because they're going to school or to an environment or to work, and they're coming home. And unfortunately, it doesn't end. They're being hit on one after the other after the other. There are fake accounts coming after them. You have situations that can be really intense. I just recently did an article on revenge porn, and unfortunately, how that is taken as a part of even dealing with bullying and that escalation. And when we start breaking down these issues and we start talking about them on a human level and a heart level and a connection level, these are human beings that are being abused over and over and over again. And they are degraded to the point that they're going to bed at night with texts being sent to them that we'd be better off if you were dead than you weren't here tomorrow. And they're waking up the next morning to the same messages of I can't even believe we have to go to school, or we're going to have to be in the classroom with these people, or wherever it is, of we would rather be better off if they were dead. And as we know as adults, the importance of being mindful of what we are going to bed on and what we wake up on is so important. And yet as youth, they're dealing with this cycle that never breaks,
Mhm.
doesn't breathe. It doesn't give them a moment to breathe. It is a never-ending cycle. Even when they think they've got a handle on it or they've adjusted, they can have somebody come back into their lives months and months later, and it spirals them back into that mental health crisis. And so I've actually worked with children who have left a school, gone somewhere else, and 2 years later, their bullies have found them on new social media accounts and started attacking them. And it was devastating to them that they thought they really had walked away from all of that pain, and to be hit again, it's like quicksand. They feel like they can't get out.
Yeah. Devastating indeed. Actually, it makes me want to choke just listening to the stories. I'm sure that they are real life stories that your clients have shared with you over the years working in this space. I find it so ironic that half a century ago, man landed on the moon, and now SpaceX is planning to colonize Mars. However, we as a human race have yet to find ways and means to live in this one planet that we call home with understanding, empathy, acceptance, inclusivity.
Yes. You're right. We have
That's
got to
really
find a
ironic.
way. Well, you're right. And the part of it is just some of it is human nature, a little bit, but we have got to find a way. And I personally, this is probably not very popular answer for a lot of people, but I am finding in my country that we have a very serious bullying crisis on the rise because we have a very
Mhm.
serious parenting crisis. We are struggling with parents not knowing how to connect to their children, not knowing what to do, even when their children are the bully, not knowing how to handle situations online or what to do when they're confronted. And I'm finding this issue getting worse over time with parents feeling they don't have the resources to even communicate with their kids. They don't know the words or the language. So when kids are coming and talking about things like I mentioned a little bit earlier, from revenge porn to love bombing, or happy slapping or posing or flaming, or terms that parents don't even know what they are, but they're part of children's everyday lives online, it can make many parents feel that they're just overwhelmed and not even sure where to start that conversation. And when you combine that with the fact that now the average child online is dealing with bullying by the age of 9, so our gaming and cyberbullying is at the age of 9, that's really young. And I'm seeing bullying in children, like in preschools, at 3 years old. And the youngest child I have had come to me with a suicide plan was 7 years old. Yet I've worked with children easily in that 5-6 year range that are dealing with serial bullies. And so we have a cultural shift with younger and younger children dealing with this, and yet parents wanting to do something, but they just don't have the resources or the vocabulary to connect to their children because we didn't experience this. When we went to school, there was bullying, and it was intense for many people. It was hurtful and horrible. And people still remember today what that pain was like. But we came home and we had a break. We never really went through a place that we couldn't walk away or have dinner with our family with a break, or be able to go in our rooms and do our schoolwork without being attacked online in the chat rooms, even within the schools they're in. There are so many different places that it's coming at them and not even knowing or having a preparedness to know. It's a hard battle for many of these kids. As adults, we would have a hard time struggling with it. And I deal with a lot of adults who are dealing with workplace bullying.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really quite something because these children, if they aren't taught new skills, they end up being our future leaders. And so I
Mhm.
recently released a new course, a leadership development course for leadership in the digital world, of how are we going to equip and train this next generation of leaders to combat this issue of bullying and to be able to set policies and procedures and step in and make effective change. Because if we continue down this path, we already are in a situation that people are having a mental health crisis at massive proportions.
Mhm.
Recently, I wrote down a few statistics. Recently, at least here in our country, here in the United States, over COVID, children between the ages of 11 to 17 this year, 50% of them have considered self-harm or suicide. Those are huge numbers. 80% of adolescent boys have felt alone or isolated with nowhere to talk, and 70% are dealing with loneliness of boys and girls, are feeling this isolation and loneliness. And so they're turning online for more help, right? Where they're turning online for community. And one thing where it becomes a really big problem is children who are bullied, who are broken and in different emotional states, are at a huge rate for being able to be trafficked or a victim for somebody online. They're easy to be groomed. They're easy to talk to because somebody is kind to them. And they talk to them in a private chat, and it's easy to groom them in that situation. And I've had children who have been forced into sex trafficking in protection from their bullies because they felt that was an easier choice. It is a horrible situation. And when you start to unpack it, you start to see the pain that really can run deep in families and in children.
Yeah, that's so sad. It reminds me of something that I've read somewhere. The devil that you know is better than the devil that you do not know. So
Yeah.
if you're being someone online was being kind to you, but he didn't or she didn't have your best interest in mind, you are inclined. You are inclined to believe that this one is going to take care or protect you, make you feel safe because you're
Yes.
not feeling safe.
You're not
In your
feeling
environment.
safe. And our kids, when we're dealing, if you have a child who's dealing with these things, the easiest thing we talk about are 3 S's, the importance of safety for them, support, and structure. Because families, when these children are in crisis, they're not feeling safe. They need a massive support system around them and then structure to be able to work through that. And those are things that parents can provide when they know what to effectively do. They just need to know. Parents want to make change. They want to desperately help their children, but there's so little that we don't even talk about these issues. I think on some level we know it, we just don't unpack it and talk about it. And I'm so excited that you're having this conversation tonight because I think the more we can talk about it, the more we bring that fear and shame out of the closet and able to talk about so that people know they're not alone.
Yes, they are not alone. They can have the support that they need if they reach out to you. How
Yeah.
can they stay in touch with you, Candice, after this program?
So Bullied, Broken, Redeemed is my company, and we run classes and workshops. We have about 6 different books on Amazon, all that kind of good stuff. But we would love to connect with you there. And I think I'm on all of the social media places, so you can find me out there. I absolutely, it is hard work that I do. I remember earlier in the year, Jennifer, it was one day, early in January, I had walked into my office and I had had the 7th family in 10 days, 7th family whose child had attempted to take their life due to bullying. And I thought, how, I'm just one person, how do you begin to climb out of this? But it made me realize that we have such a global problem that I think the missing solution for me, the missing solution is we need to empower parents. And if we can empower parents to understand younger and younger and give them real tools, they're willing to step into these hard conversations with their kids on both ways, whether their children are the ones who are bullying, which does happen, or on the side of the victim where they're in the middle, the children who can stand up, or the adults who can stand up and make an impact because they have the vocabulary to know what to say, to identify it, to know that is specifically bullying, and to be able to put the harassment or the assault or the other terms behind it, and know that conflict resolution skills will not work with a bully, and know what to do. Because how many parents have a sign of bullying and yet they think they can talk it out, or they're going to work it out, or they're going to sit the 2 kids down? It doesn't work that way. Because in bullying, one person, both people, if you have a conflict, both people have to want a resolution. In bullying, the bully doesn't want a resolution. It's not their goal, right? So that's something I think we can do a little bit better job of helping equip parents with what do they really need to do. And then teaching our children more effective conflict resolutions, because conflict's going to happen everywhere. We have to know how to stand up to conflict. We have to know what to do when it happens in our families. But we also need to know if our siblings are bullies or our teachers. Would you believe that a third of the calls that I get are from teachers and other adults bullying children? 1/3 are from adults bullying children, not children on children.
Mhm.
It's always mind-blowing to me.
Because we were not able to nip the problem in the bud. These started as bullies and then they transferred to the workplace.
Mhm. Yeah.
Indeed, I agree that we need an integrative and we need to be intentional in addressing this serious and, shall I say, insidious social phenomenon. So we need all our leaders, parents, camp counselors. They are
Very
in
much so. Oh, yes. Camp counselors, anybody working with youth. That's actually an area I will tell you that I think needs a lot more work are in our camps. And I understand it because children can go in for a short period of time. They may come in a week or 2 weeks. So they don't think of the importance of it, but the damage that can be done in that short period of time to a child is horrible, absolutely horrible. And if we can equip, and many of the times the leaders haven't had any training, or the older youth who are the ones who are sometimes working with the younger children, if we can equip them with the skills to know how to stop it and to make true impact, you can really change the life and the course of a child on both directions when you have strong, effective leaders. It's really important.
I believe that this topic is strongly resonating with our viewers. We have so many comments on the chat in the comment section. So we have Apple Esplana saying nice episode, Jennifer Nuya. And then also from Avis, good day, watching from Binangonan, Rizal. Also from Win, he said that this is a really important topic that we should talk more about in our country, also in the Philippines. We also have instances here of bullying, unfortunately, and that's the reason why he is educating his children, making them aware of what bullying is.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And doing that, you'll also encourage and show other parents how they can do that and make a difference. Our program that we just started running for leadership development skills, we actually wrote for parents to be able to run in their communities, in their neighborhoods. They don't have to be able to teach, but to facilitate with short videos and discussions and being able to change our culture and our communities, being able to effectively make change so that this next generation doesn't have to sit in the abuse without knowing what to do.
That's really important. Mindset shift, culture shift.
Culture shift. Yes, absolutely.
It has to be a systemic change for it to be really effective.
And that starts with our leaders who are willing to be our leaders, that are willing to acknowledge we have a problem and willing to make a change and provide resources.
Brilliant work you are doing and your team, Candice, at Bullied, Brook, and Redeem. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I have absolutely enjoyed this.
So, dear viewers, if you've loved this episode, we encourage you to invite your friends and colleagues to join us again in the next remaining episodes on June 10th and 17th. We would also love to know how you are finding this episode. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, how would you rate today's episode? Please take a few moments and drop your answers in the chat box. Thank you, everyone, for those who are participating in the comment section. Thank you for your comments. They are really appreciated. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. I'll see you again next Thursday, June 10th, for another episode of Stories from the Fridge. God bless everyone.